Welcome to Make the Shift podcast. I'm Destiny Berman, a model marketer and a course launch strategist. After 15 years of leading large-scale marketing campaigns in Silicon Valley, I left my corporate life when I realized I had a deeper calling. Now I help teachers and entrepreneurs just like you make that life-changing shift from offline to online in order to create the business and life they've always wanted. This podcast will give you the roadmap and the inspiration you want and need to scale your life's work by launching digital courses and online schools. The world needs what you have to offer. It's time to make your specialty your destiny. Are you ready to make the shift? Let's go. Hello. Thank you for tuning into today's episode of Make the Shift. And today we are talking about your best marketing tool. Now, it may be hard to say there's one best marketing tool. So what I'm going to say, instead of this being your best marketing tool, it's actually your essential marketing tool. So today we are going to dive into your essential must-have marketing tool regardless of what stage you are at in your business. Now, what if you had buyers lined up excited to jump into your digital course? You've got a wait list of potential students who are ready to go. Would that have you feel more confident with launching your offer? Well, who doesn't want that? Of course, we want to launch to people waiting on the other side, ready to jump in. Now, in spite of how complicated the digital landscape has evolved, with new platforms, with new social channels, with new tools, with new technology, there's one aspect of marketing online that has never gone away and I believe will continue to stay. It may not sound sexy, but it is your old-fashioned email list. And in spite of the latest trends, your email list is still critical, if not the best tool for making sales. So I want to dive into my approach of building your email list, leveraging both passive and active events so we can make the most use of your time while getting to the biggest results. First, let's break down the difference between building an email list and building your audience. Ultimately, you're actually building both and you want to build both. So your audience is defined by your social followers, your video views, people who are following you but have not opted in with their name and a valid email address that you can now follow up with. That's a distinction that you want to think about. While having an audience who pays attention to your content online, on Instagram, on YouTube, on Facebook is important and valuable, the difference is that you can't follow up with them. Whereas your email list is a channel that you own, that you can choose to use and send to them on any platform of your choice. Because you don't own your followers. You don't own the video views until they decide to give you their name and their email address. So if your email list is a channel that you own and where you can follow up, it's also where you can convert. So your audience, your community responding to you over a piece of content, over a video, that's great. But ultimately, you need to convert them. You want to convert them into paying students and members and clients. And in order to do that, you do need to follow up with them. Now, is it true that more emails are being sent every day? Absolutely. Are people getting bombarded with emails in their inbox that they can't even get through it in a single day? 100%. It's certainly not like in the good old days where email as a platform, as a channel was just getting established. This is true. At the same time, if you keep your email list engaged and you keep interacting with them, they will still open up your emails and it will still be a conversion channel for you. So again, it's not that building an audience on social media isn't important. It's just that you need the second step of turning them into a list so that you can follow up. Now, there's another aspect to this, which is equally as important as having an email list, is making sure that you keep your list engaged. Because if you focus on collecting your email list, but you don't consider how you're interacting with them, how you're activating them, they're not going to pay attention when you do send them an email, because they're going to open up their inbox and they're going to have a million unopened emails waiting for them. And how do they know whose email to read first? They will gravitate towards the person whose name they recognize, whose name they know, and who has been sending them high value emails that they have been receiving value from. That's the person they're going to prioritize opening that email. The other aspect to remember with your social followers is that only a small percentage of your total followers are even seeing your posts. So while it's important to have a presence, know that 1, you don't own that channel, you don't own the followers, and 2, only a small percentage of your total followers actually sees your posts, and 3, anytime there's an algorithm change to Instagram, to YouTube, to Google, to Facebook, that is going to impact how your posts get seen. Whereas with your email list, because you own that channel, you can decide when to email, how often you want to email, and even which platform you want to send the emails on. So let's talk about what it means to have an engaged email list and why that's so important. 70 to 80% of a successful launch, the heavy lifting is done in the pre-launch period. And that is when you're building and cultivating relationships for months in advance so that new people who are getting exposed to your work has a chance to connect with you, has a chance to build relationships with you. So your email list is an essential marketing tool, but you can only make it work for you if you're using it and building it the right way. The 3 aspects of a hot email list are 1, the size, because the more people you have on your list, the more you're increasing your exposure when you have a campaign, when you set off a campaign. 2, having the right people on your list, because if you don't have your target audience, your potential best fit customers, it doesn't matter how frequently you're emailing and engaging with them, they're not going to buy. And 3rd is the consistency and repetition in which you engage with your list. You need to stay top of mind so that your audience, so that your email list remembers who you are, they recognize your content, and they're receiving value from your content when they're engaging with you. So let's talk about how we can build your list, whether you're starting from the ground up or whether you have a list that you're looking to build on. Principle number 1 is that you need advertising to scale. And the reality is that regardless of what stage you're in, if you don't advertise, you can't grow and you can't scale. Advertising is also the number 1 way to get new people into your online universe on an automated, repeatable basis. Period. Referrals are great, affiliates are great, but advertising is the number 1 way for this to happen on a predictable, consistent basis. Now, because we're all short on time and because we all have limited energy, resources, and time, my approach to building your list is with a hybrid approach, leveraging what I call a passive lead magnet with an active lead builder. The reason why I like this approach and the reason why I believe it works so well is because using a passive lead magnet, you can be building your list 24/7 on an automated basis using advertising campaigns. Your passive lead magnet is a very digestible, easy to consume piece of content, and a PDF format is the most digestible way to consume content. So this can be a how-to guide, this can be a checklist, this can be a resource guide. It's your first point of contact in asking your user to say, look, I'm interested in this topic. I'm interested in this enough to give you my name and email address, and I want more. So you're going to have your passive lead builder working for you 24/7 automated basis using ads. Now, when we look at the data, it tells us that the more touch points you have with your email list across multiple formats, the more of a probability they will become a paying customer. So this is where I like to leverage the triple stack, the trifactor. You've got your passive lead magnet. Then you're going to have an active lead builder. And my favorite way of using an active lead builder is a content webinar. Content webinars are great, especially for those of you who are new to the webinar game. One, you get to deliver an online workshop. You'll have a call to action at the end of it, but you're not making a pitch. So you want to treat it like a podcast episode. You're teaching, you're delivering value, it's live, they get to interact with you. And what's nice is that the people who've come onto your list from your passive lead magnet now get to engage with you in a different format on a content webinar. When was the last time you were on a webinar where there wasn't a pitch tied to it? Then you're going to when you head into your sales sequence, you're going to have your sales webinar. So what you've effectively done is you've built different formats and different touch points with your email list for them to be able to consume with you in the desire and based on their needs and their appetite at the moment, more passively and more actively. And this is how you'll also be able to leverage your time, because you don't have to be thinking about building your list on a 24/7 basis. You have a system that's working for you. And you also get to activate and incorporate live events that will bring more of you in and will allow them to engage at a deeper basis with you. So here's what this looks like. You have your passive lead magnet that's running 24/7. You hold a monthly content webinar leading up to your launch. And then during your launch, you'll have a sales webinar. My clients who have used this approach have been able to grow their businesses from 0 to 6 and even 7 figures. The key is consistency. If you're going to commit to a monthly content webinar, put that on your calendar and make that happen. And heading into your launch, know that you are going to plan to have a sales webinar as part of your launch event. So let's dive into the qualities of what is important to have an effective passive and active lead building. One, it needs to be relevant and connect it with your paid offer. We're not talking about, you don't want to put out random pieces of content. You want to put out content that is highly relevant and gets people thinking about your paid course. Now, the best way to do this is to look at your customer journey and to map out what do they need to know in the beginning of their journey. If you are helping others with getting into a dream relationship, what do they need to know specifically at the beginning of their getting into a dream relationship journey that you can turn into a digestible, easy to consume piece of content? That by them saying, yes, I'm interested in this, it tells you that 1, they're interested in getting into a relationship, and 2, they're willing to take some action. Otherwise, they wouldn't have opted in. They wouldn't have given you their name and their email address. Now, if we think about bringing them deeper over this content webinar, which is a 45 minute live online workshop where you're simultaneously able to build up your list and nurture your list, which is why I think it really serves 2 purposes. A content webinar will help you both build and nurture your existing list. So now you want to take it one step further. The person who's looking to get into a dream relationship has now learned 3 practices from your passive lead magnet with how to set themselves up for success. So what can you teach inside this workshop that will have them go deeper without overwhelming them? Because one of the top questions that we get is, well, how do I know how much free content to give? And if I'm giving away so much free content, wouldn't I just be giving away my paid course? And the answer is that's not possible. For someone who is coming through, who is not being served within the container of a dedicated program to guide them through this transformational arc, you are doing them a disservice if you give them too much content. So you want to pull out the bite-sized, digestible pieces of content that is of service to them at this stage of them learning from you. So over a 40 to 45 minute workshop, there's only so much you can deliver versus a 6-week paid program. So within this workshop, what can you teach them that they can leave with the shifts, the ahas and perspectives and say, wow, it is possible for me to get into a dream relationship. And here's how I can see this path being, and potentially you're the teacher for them. Does that make sense? So the call to action at the end of that content webinar is to get on your program waitlist, to join your Facebook group, to follow you on Instagram, to follow you on Facebook. You always want to be asking them to take the next step with you, even if you're not in your launch yet. So to recap, your email list continues to be an essential, non-negotiable marketing tool for you, even in this day and age of social media platforms. It's a channel that you own, and it's a channel that you can control how you communicate and your follow process with your online community. My approach of growing your email list is by leveraging a passive lead magnet that is digestible, related to your upcoming course, with an active lead building approach. And while there are several ways to do that, my favorite ways is to hold a monthly content webinar where you're holding a live workshop with no invitation to buy. You are engaging your list, you're nurturing your list. If you think about this like a podcast episode, where you will be asking them to take the next step with you, whether it's joining your list or following you on social. So you're creating that next step, but you're not yet asking them to buy. Your content webinar will serve both simultaneously as a lead builder for you and also as a nurturing for the people who are on your list today. And then finally, know that it takes time for people to get to know you. And so you need to invest in building relationships and value. I will be going into how to nurture your email list at scale and build intimacy at scale in a separate podcast episode. And finally, the key elements to having a hot email list are having the right people, showing up consistently for them, so engaged nurturing, and continuing to grow your list so you're growing your exposure when you launch your digital programs. If you want to learn more about growing your email list, download my free Profitable Course Launch Plan. It's a how-to guide for creating a successful digital course, even if you're a complete beginner, and get your copy at the link on the show notes below. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for joining me today. All the resources and action items mentioned in this episode can be found at destinyberman.com/podcast. To continue the conversation, join me in my Facebook group, The Skinny Launch Lab. And if you're loving this episode, do me a favor and share it with a friend. Until next week, your destiny awaits. Bye for now.